Hello, and welcome to today's webcast entitled Swimming in a Sea of Malware Alerts. And really the topic today is how advanced threat detection analysis can reduce risks and costs for both customers and MSSPs. My name is Kevin Roan, Practice Director at Enterprise Strategy Group. ESG is an analyst, research, and advisory firm for the IT industry. Enterprise Strategy Group is an integrated analyst, research, and advisory firm with a heavy focus in cybersecurity. Let me introduce our panel today, and we hope you enjoy the topics. As I said, I'm Kevin Roan, Practice Director, and I lead the practice that we call Channel and Partner Acceleration. We work with our clients' partner teams on their programs, strategy, and enablement to help their partners do the best job possible of working with those partners. Along with me is one of the colleagues, Dave Gruber, and I'll let Dave introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I'm a principal analyst at ESG, and I work with cybersecurity organizations looking after detection and response of all forms, so managed detection and response, XDR, MDR, EDR, but I also cover endpoint security, email security, and IoT security on the corporate side as well. So glad to be here today. Thanks.
And we have two distinguished speakers with us today. First up is Andrew McGuire from VMRay. Andrew, you want to give a little bit of background?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm the product marketing manager for the MSSPs at VMRay. I have 25 years experience in the cybersecurity space, and I've worked for organizations such as McAfee, Bitdefender, Juniper Networks, and on technologies, everything from anti-malware solutions to intrusion detection, vulnerability assessment, and deception technology.
That's great. Thank you, Andrew. And right beside Andrew is Dean Papa, who's the head of MSSP and GSI for Chronicle.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nice to meet everybody. I actually came to Google Chronicle as an acquisition as part of Simplify and ran that SOAR practice for a couple of years. So spent a lot of time working in the MSSP industry, going on 22 years in the space, and have a specialization with SecOps. So looking forward to the conversation today.
Today, we're going to be looking to share VMRay's unique approach for automated malware triage and analysis, and more specifically, the partnership with Chronicle that enables MSSP productivity and efficiency and ultimately creates longer, more productive customer relationships. Here are a few of the topics that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to start off and give a little bit of feedback on the market and the trends and the vision from ESG. And then you can see the various topics that are going to be covered today: the threat landscape, the topic of closing the window of vulnerability, and then the integration between VMRay and Chronicle and how it addresses those challenges. We're going to wrap it up then with a little bit of Q&A and back and forth. Always a good opportunity to kind of ad-lib a little bit. With that, I'd like to hand it off to my colleague Dave and get started with a little bit of the background. Dave?
Thanks, Kevin. I wanted to start out by just painting a bit of a picture about what's happening in the cybersecurity industry and why it's so important that we're talking about the opportunity for managed detection and response services, but equally important, the conversation about automation as it applies to the topic of detection and response. At ESG, I do a lot of research in all of these areas, and I've recently run studies that are deeply focused on the conversation around XDR. I also just finished an in-depth study on managed detection and response and what organizations are looking for and how they're using and applying managed service providers to help them automate and accelerate their security operations function. As part of this research, we continue to see that organizations struggle with the function of security operations, with more than half believing that security operations is fundamentally more difficult than it was 2 years ago. And that's despite a continuing increase in spend that's happening at the same time. Along with that, in support of a growing attack surface in most organizations who are becoming more and more dependent, of course, on lots of cloud resources, but also a very diverse endpoint landscape and asset landscape as people work from all different places in the world. There's been a big focus on improving detection and response, which at some level is a symptom of this broader diversity of the attack surface that's happening. And so as organizations face protecting a broader environment, a more diverse environment, and then basically a tougher threat landscape where people are taking advantage of those environments, there's been a big focus on the amount of detection and response activities that are being generated through this diversity. Now, the XDR conversation, this is extended detection and response. And for those of you who are not following XDR closely, this is about the last 2.5-ish or so years, the industry has been rallying around this notion of a broader view or a broader set of technology focused on detection and response. And that's been referred to as XDR. Well, that conversation has really been a big genesis for this whole upgrade of the detection and response function, which managed detection and response, or MDR, and I'll refer to it as that going forward. So MDR has been a big part of that conversation. So in addition to upgrading the technology infrastructure that it takes to help security operations teams do a better job at detection and response, organizations are also engaging with third parties under the umbrella of this term managed detection and response to help fulfill the people, process, and technology upgrade components of doing so. So in parallel, this conversation around XDR and in some cases managed XDR, or in simple terms, managed detection and response, has been a big conversation, and also a big area of spend. Organizations putting a tremendous amount of budget dollars into this function. So I just, for fun, sort of talk about XDR and MDR as sort of like peanut butter and jelly. It's hard to have the conversation about one without talking about the other. And so there's an opportunity here for both a technology standpoint, which we'll be talking about more later, and also for service providers. If you haven't already invested in building an MDR practice that sits on top of all this, there's a big opportunity to do so today. So as we look at some of the research that we've been doing, we took 5 big takeaways from our most recent research on SOC modernization. So this was a broad study. We're looking at what are security operations teams doing fundamentally to upgrade and get themselves ready for the future. And one thing that we know continues to happen is there's more data pouring into security operations functions, fundamentally because there's more controls in the attack surface, which pushes more security telemetry, more alerts, and sort of the overwhelming amount of data and alerts continuing to be a big challenge. The second piece of the equation is around process automation. We know organizations want more, are doing more, investing in more process automation. It's a super important strategy for most to be able to keep up with this new increase of what's happening. The MITRE ATT&CK framework has become a big basis for the conversation about how to build security programs. We'll talk a bit about that later again. And then the XDR agenda was another big trend that we saw. And then finally, the continued investment in MDR. So these were the 5 big high-level takeaways from our most recent study. So we're going to be talking about many pieces of this as we move forward here. Okay, so let's just drill into MDR a little bit. So we know that most organizations already have budget put aside for MDR. Many organizations already leveraging MSSPs, leveraging individual MDR providers, with 85% of organizations already investing in either managed detection and response services or at least for some portion of their organization. So MDR, or the consumption or use of MDR, has become very mainstream. And you see on the right side of the chart here that investment plans continue to increase, with 42% say that they're going to increase significantly in the coming year, and another 46% will increase slightly. So lots of dollars flowing here. Again, translates into opportunity for you as a managed service security provider. When we take a look at why organizations are investing, well, there's a number of reasons. Fundamentally, one, though, is that most organizations want to focus their own internal security personnel on more strategic initiatives and spend less time on the security operations tasks themselves. The second key motivator here is fundamentally people think that MDR organizations can simply do a better job at security operations, and that's across all facets of people, process, and technology. But there's a number of other use cases as well that apply here. Many organizations are simply augmenting to cover off either skills shortages or peak periods within their organization or regional coverage. In other cases, it's just a straight up, I can't get the resources that I need. I can't acquire them because of the cybersecurity skills shortage. So lots of use cases apply here, which tees up that much more opportunity. When we look at automation itself, and we talk about, we apply more automation to the equation, people are improving their threat detection through the use of automated playbooks. People are seeing value with better mean time to response, mean time to detect, mean time to isolate, better incident prioritization, fewer escalations. So automation is really adding a tremendous amount of value to help organizations keep up with this sort of growing amount of telemetry, growing amount of alerts, and growing diversity of the attack surface itself. As mentioned, when it comes to funding itself, here's a breakdown of the substantial sort of increasing slightly. And when we look at the spend on security operations technology itself and how we expect that to sort of occur, there's only a small number of organizations that expect to not increase spending.
That's great, Dave. Let me kind of jump in here for a second and comment on some of the things that my team has done as we've gone out and done primary research with managed security providers. And there's some interesting things here that kind of support the general trends that Dave was talking about. What we found was that managed security services is now a large and growing portion of many partners' revenue. You can see some of the numbers here. That they expected over, well, we're right in the middle of this time frame to increase by over 20% between 2021 and 2023. Not surprising that it's in that regard is a strategic priority. Almost 9 out of 10 of the respondents to our survey, they really want to make sure that they evolve their portfolio and rank it in their top 5 priorities right now as well. The other interesting thing is that they're not afraid to and fully expect to be analyzing and taking a look at creating new alliances, different partnerships, advanced technologies that are going to help drive their business, and expect that to happen as well. But they recognize that the opportunity to automate is very real. You can see the number of partners feel that they fully automated, and more than 82% who say they want to not only increase the automation, but help it to drive their business. So some really good validating information on those trends and some things for the marketplace. I don't know, Dave, do you have any kind of wrap or anything that you'd like to put on this first part of it after seeing that?
Well, because so many managed service providers already have established relationships with organizations, it's a natural extension to be able to up-level the conversation to become more of a strategic or more of a trusted security partner rather than a core focus on basic infrastructure, to take a step up as far as strategy goes and helping organizations build increase their security posture, increase their overall effectiveness of their security programs. And so this not only creates an opportunity for an additional revenue stream, but it also creates an opportunity for MSSPs to have a more strategic relationship with customers, which should translate into longer term agreements and increasing annual revenue from organizations as we expand the portfolio of services.
That's great. Thanks for setting the table and setting that background. Really appreciate it. Next part of the discussion we'd like to have today is to give Andrew and Dean a chance to really tell us a little bit about their businesses and kind of set the foundation for the relationship. Who'd like to start us off?
Sure, I happy to. So Dean Pop-Up, we obviously Simplify was the SOAR brand that we went to market with. We've been recently acquired by Google and are now rebranded Chronicle SOAR. This marries into the SecOps suite. So we are SaaS native, cloud native from the innate. We scale globally, and this is delivered over GCP now. So we're seeing some substantial value in the market. I think cloud native and SOAR really matter here because from a delivery standpoint and how you're delivering the services, SOAR allows for that automation of the commodity process flow. So delivering it over SaaS means the elimination of pre-production in a lot of cases and allowing those hot fixes to just be delivered with stable uptime. So we're excited to be there. The concept of SOAR and automating response is automating commodity response. And this allows the MSSPs to scale, and that's where we see so much of the value. So to Dave and Kevin points earlier, what's the value of automation? Automation within SecOps, automation in SOAR. It's to automate commodity process flow to speed up your MTT gains. And what we see a lot of is the MTTX of validating and responding, right, to that is done by machines now. And that allows smart people to make critical decisions faster. And that's what we're seeing a lot of growth and expansion. Our success in the service provider space had a lot to do with these technologies were built for service providers. So fully multi-tenant out of the gate allows MSSPs to scale and how they deliver services. So we'll get into a little bit more, but just excited to be part of this today and to work with our friends at VMRay.
Thanks, Dean. That's a great summary. Andrew, tell us a little bit about what VMRay is all about.
Sure. So at VMRay, we've developed the best-in-class malware triage and phishing analysis platform that really helps organizations minimize their risk of compromise by quickly identifying and helping mitigate advanced evasive malware threats that impact their business. So with VMRay's ability to scale and automate tier 1 and tier 2 triage in high volume environments, service providers can improve economy of service and shorten response times to meet their customer SLAs with fewer highly skilled malware analysts, basically. So founded in 2013, VMRay works with leading MDR providers and MSSPs such as Expel, keeping their SOC teams moving quickly through the investigative process with fast, accurate analysis and increased visibility into the malware and phishing threats that are targeting their customers' networks.
Great, Andrew. Thanks very much. And now we'll kind of go back to Dean. And Dean, here's your opportunity to kind of dig into the details a little bit more for our audience.
A little bit more. I think the vision Google is laying out for the world and especially within SecOps is a powerful one. And that's what we're showing you here. Simplify was a big piece of that and marrying to the Chronicle SecOps solution. But the ability to deliver end-to-end enhanced SecOps and doing it as a best of breed model within the ecosystem is very powerful. So what we were doing at SOAR before the acquisition was really enabling MSSPs to automate process and delivery, new lines of revenue business, right? Stronger margins, stronger retention. We were a value, we were a tool that allowed an MSSP to deliver and scale. We've ratcheted that message up now, and you can see the portfolio that we have here and continue to grow at Google. The vision is to, buy instead of build and lay out a repeatable process for SecOps, sub-second queries on active intelligence in the environment, stronger efficacy on decision criteria. This allows you to run more investigations within a day. And with partnering with organizations like VMRay, that allows us to speed up that investigation cycle. So if I can shorten the investigation windows, speed up the validation and automate process, we're going to in turn partner with best of breed organizations to speed up the risk of that and then automate response. So from Virus Total to Google Curated Threat Intelligence to SCCP over cloud, everything is designed to take the journey where the MSSP enables this, delivers from on-prem to the cloud, and then automating process flow as we go through it. So exciting times to do this. I think the beauty is not going away from a best of breed model with Google. This is core to their delivery. It really allows us to continue to partner with our friends in the market to help kind of the MSSPs become more profound in how they deliver services.
I guess the next slide kind of translates that into, what does it mean for me as an MSSP?
Yeah. There's so much value into what it means for you. The way stocks operate today, there's so much reliant on resources, and being able to allow an analyst not to have to do 3 hours of commodity work to validate is very powerful, in that now you can restructure how your analysts are currently working in the space. This differentiates your offering from others, and MSSP right now is highly competitive. There are a lot in the market, and we work to show differentiation and how we can provide additional value. I think to the point of customer retention, the happier the customer can be, it means the more visibility they have. MSSPs have always had this virtual firewall, and the work that they do in the past wasn't really visible to the end client. And SOAR now allows that visibility to go down through the end client, and that allows for a happier customer, stronger retention. But it also is there because we're able to enhance new service lines of business, and customers see more value in, as the MSSPs help shrink the risk posture within that organization. So there's definitely a lot of value into it. The third one that we call out is the ability to grow margins. Automation is a machine doing this work on behalf of people. So the more we can automate the commodity, the more margins are increased on this, not only with new lines of revenue stream, but the additional, MDR services, vulnerability management services that are being delivered. So as you scale and deploy on SOAR, you're able to enhance the margins and the profitability as it goes through. So it's one of those unique situations where we're giving you a piece of strong technology that's really more focused on business outcomes, business gains, and ROI value on back-end operational efficiency.
Hey, if I may jump in here just for a quick sec, my takeaway from listening to this story is that you guys are deeply focused on automation, so that sort of the center of this story, and so translating that back to sort of the general value for a service provider. There's a minimum bar that every service provider has to meet to deliver security services to its customers. And then there's a cost model that's associated with that for each of us as we implement our services. And we want to, of course, be able to scale to handle as many customers per analyst that we're able to hire on our team as possible. So the more automation we can apply, the more net new customers we can support with the limited amount of security staff that we have on our team. So that's one. The other piece is around differentiation. So you talk about differentiating from the competition. When you're freed, when your resources are freed up to spend more time on specialized type services and service offerings versus the turn the crank items that you speak of as commodity, when you can do that, you're able to further differentiate, right? Because you're not investing all of your resources in the turn the crank daily commodity-based function. So I love this conversation. I love the focus on automation. And at the end of the day, this is an enabler to grow and scale new service offerings.
Well said, sir. Agree.
That's great. Great foundation, Dean. And thanks for weighing in, Dave. That's really good stuff. Next, we kind of like to flip it back to Andrew. And Andrew, maybe you can start off the discussion on VMRay with a little bit of your perspectives on the landscape. And as you can see here, there's a little bit of by the numbers stuff.
Sure. So, really what's happening right now in this constantly changing and constantly growing sort of malware threat landscape. So Windows is obviously still the #1 target for malware writers due to its market share and adoption by consumers and businesses worldwide. So we're nearing nearly 1 billion samples of malware and potentially unwanted applications targeting the Windows OS, which really dwarfs all the other operating systems deployed within the enterprise. So Linux OS has seen quite a notable increase in backdoors, rootkits, and especially ransomware over the last couple of years. And malware writers are sort of pivoting towards cloud service providers to encrypt workloads and cripple service availability, which is obviously going to impact a larger number of customers that rely on those services. And it's also a strong incentive to pay the ransom and get your business back. Mac OS has also seen a big jump in enterprise adoption and is therefore becoming a bigger target, which is primarily due to the enterprise-friendly features and functionality that they've released in Monterey and Mammoth. So phishing is still the #1 attack vector, nothing new there. But since Microsoft has disabled the ability to run untrusted macros in Office, we've seen sort of a notable decrease in macro-based attacks. So new attack vectors are quickly becoming adopted, however, including the use of containers such as ISO, ACE, WRAP, ZIP, and 7-zip archives. So as long as the malware stays within the archive file, it can be handled safely. But since ACE and ISO files are not really common, any email that you receive can immediately be presumed malicious and safely deleted if you find one of those file types attached. So in 2021, there was a staggering 5.4 billion malware attacks, and we're on track to exceed that number with over 2.8 billion malware attacks in the first half of 2022. So yeah, things are definitely constantly growing, constant threats, bigger attack surfaces, and yeah, keeping everybody on their toes. So while the volume of malware out there in the wild is daunting, this is the known malware. The scariest scenario is the more evasive, difficult to detect threats that continue to breach the enterprise. Even with all the malware detection and security controls enterprises have deployed, these threats are still getting through, and compromises unfortunately continue to happen. Just a few weeks ago, a number of HCI hospitals across the US fell victim to ransomware attacks. And that left a lot of hospitals crippled for over a week or more, delaying patient care and obviously impacting people. And it's not just about money. So with tens of thousands of alerts handled every day by MSSPs, it just takes one evasive sample to get through, and it's going to ruin your customer's day. And this is why the methodology of threat hunting as part of an MDR service offering is becoming more popular, looking for evasive malware threats in the environment. So proactively looking for indicators of attack, identifying the source and mitigating that threat clearly works and reduces the bad actors' dwell time on the network. However, it takes really skilled security practitioners to do so, and these people are in high demand and quite short supply. So even when found without sandbox analysis, it can take a lot of time using multiple disparate tools to reverse engineer malware and extract all the necessary IOCs, or indicators of compromise. The differing levels of skills between malware analysts leads to inconsistent results and decreased accuracy. And manual malware triage actually consumes too many resources, delays response, and can also negatively affect customer SLAs, which may or may not come at a cost for the service provider. So the malware window of vulnerability is pretty much the same for any threat. Okay, the window of vulnerability for malware is the point in which a malware writer releases the code into the wild, up until the point that a vendor creates detection signatures, heuristic engine updates, and removal procedures to mitigate that threat. So that window of vulnerability can be anywhere from hours, days, weeks, months, or in some cases even years, with an average of probably around 200 plus attacker dwell time days within the compromised network. In this example, the EDR solution has detected sort of a suspicious activity, creating an alert which has been forwarded to the SOC team. The SOC team can then typically forward it to one of their security vendors for analysis, with the hope of eventually getting a new signature or an engine update. Or they can address the threat themselves in-house with either manual triage, which may take hours or days, or even via detonation in a malware sandbox environment to get a verdict within seconds or minutes. So once the IOCs have been extracted and they can then be sent to the detection engineering team, they can then create firewall rules, detection signatures, and email policy rules to mitigate that threat a lot faster than relying on the vendor to do it. So when we talk about economy of service, how can we improve that and reduce the mean time to detect and respond to incidents? From a SOAR perspective, the advantages of automation and orchestration of disparate security controls and predefined playbooks clearly help alleviate the SOC team burnout from the menial repetitive tasks. However, with a manual triage and analysis process in the pipeline, the timeline to resolution really just became an open-ended question. Right? The value that VMRay provides in high volume alert environments like an MSSP SOC is the ability to automate malware and phishing triage in addition to EDR alert validation to provide quick verdicts of malicious or benign, along with the detailed analysis and reports without having to wade through pages of clutter and superfluous data generated by other malware analysis solutions. While EDR and SOAR solutions have the ability to whitelist and blacklist false positives and true positives, there's still a large number of suspicious malware alerts that get through the filtering process, requiring further investigation. And these are the most critical of security alerts from that perspective. What would typically take 30 analysts, in this example here, 150 hours to complete manually, VMRay Analyzer can do the same in a few hours with a single tier 1 analyst. And these numbers really are extremely conservative and purely an example. In reality, we can process tens of thousands of samples per day per customer.
Yeah. Andrew, I'd add one thing. The comment you made earlier about MSSPs delivering SLAs and SLOs, you're nailing it right here. It's the time to respond that truly matters, and combining SOAR and Sandbox allow that time management to take place, to be able to allow that MSSP to differentiate themselves with a 10-minute, 15-minute response SLA. So it's very powerful what you're calling out, and it really matters in the business.
Exactly. And I think really the economy of service here, yes, it's the faster mean time to respond and detect, but it's also the ability or the reduction in skilled analysts from a headcount perspective, and allowing you to free up those security practitioners to focus more on the higher value strategic tasks rather than wasting good talent on the tactical aspects of the business. So, you know, today's modern malware families utilize evasion techniques for detection avoidance by the compensating controls that are looking for them, such as antivirus, intrusion detection, and intrusion prevention. Malware can use encryption, it can use compression, which are the container type attacks that I mentioned earlier, and other forms of obfuscation to bypass these controls unnoticed. So surgical attacks now are becoming more popular. Custom crafted malware is on the rise, and you can actually target a specific company at a specific geolocation and even down to a specific group of users within that organization. And that malware won't be seen on any feed, and there won't be any detection signatures for it because that company is the only target. In short, the company's really on its own, which is what the malware writer's intention is to increase the dwell time and avoid discovery on the network. So payload detonation in a sandbox environment is currently the only way to identify this highly evasive malware and advanced phishing threats. However, you know, the other challenge is evasive malware is also written to identify the specific traits of different sandbox environments to avoid detection and revealing the payload and IOCs before it does its damage. So if the malware doesn't detonate because it detected a monitoring environment, the sample's considered benign by the analyst, and the threat will remain in the enterprise environment for an extended period of time unnoticed. So we work very hard at VMRay to ensure that VMRay Analyzer remains evasion resistant. Okay, and the analysis of Raccoon version 2 here clearly shows some of the other sandbox solutions that can be detected by this malware. So if you have a sandbox that can be profiled, because it employs monitoring technology detectable inside the detonation environment, basically you and your customers may have a problem that they're unaware of, because that malware may already be in the enterprise. So choosing the right sandbox technology for your MDR services is critically important.
Yeah, I think, you know, what MSSPs like working with us. I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of MSSPs over the past 10 years, being one at Semantic MSS. I think the key is complementing the vision and delivery that the MSSP has today, but supporting a best of breed model, right? So we do a lot of that, and SOAR in itself is really designed to be that bridge. So the integrations truly matter. We've got over 450 integrations globally now, and it's with all best of breed partners. These are people that we've worked with directly, such as VMRay, but also organizations that companies want us to reach out to. So we're very agnostic in all the primary areas of focus. We can do custom integrations. These integrations are pretty quick to build. We enable our MSSPs to deliver their own services and build out their integrations on our behalf. So it's really designed around them. So I go back to the model all the time. How do I help these service providers and not just sell some technology? And it's helping you grow your business, helping you sustain your growth of this business and increase your margins. And utilizing best of breed with that methodology is a real key to that success. And that's what we see here.
Yeah, and I think this is actually the overlap between Chronicle SOAR and VMRay from the partnership side. But as you mentioned, you have over 400 integrations there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key integrations are how do these work together to optimize business outcome and delivery. And that's where we find the valuable relationship with VMRay in play, is that it truly provides that timely delivery of risk and helping these organizations do that. So it's great to be trained up on the capability and the service, but being able to deliver the outcome truly matters. And that's what I think we do really well together.
Well, now that we're back from the demo, I actually jotted down a few notes during the conversation with Dave and Dean and Andrew. And let me see if I got this down right. I actually started to think about the benefits for service providers in terms of the hospitality analogy, where you have back of house and front of house, and they have to work together effectively. So on my notes, what I heard was that the partnership that you created delivers faster onboarding and value creation, increased analyst productivity and satisfaction, which allows MSSPs to scale and support their business. I do have one additional comment regarding the analyst productivity aspect of it. Not only is the productivity included, but from our interviews with MSSPs, they found that automation didn't necessarily reduce headcount. What it did was allow their best and brightest to work on really interesting projects and deliverables for their clients, and actually helped with recruiting and retention of those organizations. So that satisfaction issue is really key. And then, the other part of my notes was that the differentiated offerings really drive longer term trusted relationships. And if you leverage that with the efficiencies, you get stronger margin, better cash flow that really supports even more growth. We also had a couple of questions that maybe we could use to with the panelists to kind of go back and forth a little bit. And Andrew, how about if I start with you? How quickly can an MSSP deploy the solution, get it up and running, and start delivering value both for the customers and for themselves?
Okay, so we have both an on-premise version and also a cloud-based solution. With the on-premise version, by the time you set up the hardware, install the application, and get everything up and running, you're probably talking less than no more than a few hours. And with the cloud-based solution, with the API integration, you could be up and running in a matter of minutes.
That's great. Are there other capabilities in the analyzer that helps the service providers improve their response, their SLAs, mean time, that type of thing?
Yeah, sure. There are actually a number of really cool features in VMRay Analyzer. One of the features is obviously we've mentioned reporting. I think reporting is very important for MSSPs to be able to show their value of the service and get that signature for the subscription at the end of the day to renew. And we can do reporting via PDF or API integration into the MSSP's reporting engine. Malware configuration extraction. This is a technology. We have over 30 different detection and analysis technologies, but malware config extraction allows you, for example, to identify the multiple command and control servers to be able to extract those IPs rather than doing it manually one time after another by doing network simulation and blocking those IPs. So that's really a massive time saver. And also we integrate with the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and we also provide VTIs, which are VMRay's threat index for each of the different types of threats that are out there. So you can instantly see within a matter of minutes exactly what that threat is and how it's going to affect your environment.
So I would add the reporting conversation. SOAR does have OEM'd BI technology into it. So it's a conduit for all reporting for MSSPs. At Chronicle SOAR, we have the Looker BI, but also Tableau. So that allows these MSSPs to create these reports, to your point, Andrew, exactly what content you're allowed to deliver. Then we can automate that in response out. So it's not just the technology, it's the business outcome. I keep kind of going back to it, but reporting is a very powerful piece of that engine.
Let me throw this one open for kind of a general question for Andrew and Dean. Can you talk a little bit about how you collaborate and how programs and support you provide for the partners to realize these benefits?
Yeah, sure. So within Chronicle SOAR, we have a marketplace, and the marketplace is married to specific vendors and the integration types that we have, and that's fully shareable. We also have a community where all of our MSSPs and enterprise organizations go on and they can contribute into that marketplace as well. This allows us to speed up the ability to develop these integrations, but we also need to develop these use cases. And with VMRay, we're expanding to have a use case provided that make it very quick and very easy for an MSSP to pull that down, make sure they have the license arrangements with both parties. And once it's down, they're able to deliver that in seconds and go down to their providers. So it's an ecosystem again, but it's designed for, what we have today and where we're going tomorrow, and how we can provide that value.
That's great, thanks. As we go to wrap here, as you can see on this slide, there's a couple of places where you can go for further research, information. You can dive into the details. And I would be remiss if I didn't give Dave the last opportunity to put a wrapper around that.
Thanks, Kevin. So my takeaway from today is as an enabler for service offerings, whether you're building or extending your business, creating a new managed detection and response service, or you already have an offering and you want to tighten up that offering and help further differentiate and help gain efficiencies in what you're doing. You saw a lot of detail here about sort of the complexity of attacks and the kinds of things that VMRay can deliver. And the payoff on that is very significant. I know from our research and from a ton of anecdotal conversations that detection rules and getting detections right is such a deep area of focus. It will really help you differentiate that conversation, but at the same time, help you implement and scale up your business so you can support multiple clients along the way with different diversities in both their attack surface and their needs as well. So my final thoughts is, given our research earlier this year and our 5 big takeaways, the combination of Chronicle and VMRay together are deeply focused on 4 of the 5 of those big takeaways, and that makes me very happy.
Well, thanks again, Dave, Dean, and Andrew. This is a lot of information packed into a relatively short period of time. Thank you for the audience. We really appreciate you taking the time to view this, and hope you have a great rest of your day.